Everyone, thank you for joining us on this episode of BAEP Talks With, a discussion with a person of interest who has experience living with, managing, treating, and/or supporting others with a chronic menstrual health disorder. My name is Julia Mandeville. I am your host, and today I'm very excited to be joined by our very own Vania Patrick Drakes. Welcome, Vania.
Hello, Julia. Thank you. And hello, everyone.
A bit about Vania. Vania is a registered psychologist and freelance writer with a special interest in holistic wellness. She is the founder of Ikigai Nutrition, Wellness, and Lifestyle Consultancy Services, which was created in the hopes of decreasing the still too high levels of stigma surrounding mental health issues in Barbados and the wider Caribbean. Within this capacity, Vania has presented for a number of organizations, including Barbados Drug Service, the Barbados Association of Endometriosis and P.C.O.S, the Barbados Employers Confederation, Massey Distributors, and public and private secondary schools across the island. Her workshops consist of hands-on activities for maximum client engagement, including role play, experiments, and dramatic enactments. She also regularly contributes to a local health and wellness magazine. Vania has a Bachelor of Science with Honours degree in Cognitive Science and in Neuroscience from the University of Toronto. She has a Master of Science degree in Counselling Psychology with distinction from the University of the West Indies, Cayfield campus, and she is currently pursuing her PhD in Social Policy. Moments of leisure, Vania enjoys conjuring up impossible what-if situations, and creative writing. Thank you so much for joining us today.
And thank you for having me.
Are you interested in psychology, the brain, and mental health?
Okay. Well, as soon as you say the brain, my mind goes back to my third year at U of T, University of Toronto. I was doing neuroscience, and the lecturer at the time, we were in a lab not knowing what to expect. And he comes with all these sheep brains, and he's like handing a sheep brain to everybody. And we're like, okay. And he's like, well, this sheep brain is going to be yours. It's yours to dissect. It's yours to memorize. It's yours to play with. This is your brain for the semester. And from then, I had this fascination with the organ. Like, it's such a small organ, but the power that it carries and how it controls everything in the body, for me, was crazy. But in terms of psychology, I think from youth, from adolescence, I had a sort of empathetic nature, I guess. I enjoyed helping other people. A friend at the time had described me as a rock, which I guess is not like okay, you're a rock, you're boring, and you're dull. But I guess I was just always there, sturdy and steady. As I got older, though, I've been noticing that there is a sort of stigma attached to mental health. So I don't have any problem saying I'm going to the doctor because my leg hurts. But if I feel sad, I might feel embarrassed to say, well, I'm going to go seek a mental health professional because I'm not feeling so great. There's almost like this shame behind it. And I'm wondering, but if it's so natural, if it's something that we all, go through at some point or another, then why is it so shameful to talk about it? So I thought that I would enter the profession to try to assist persons first and foremost, but also to try to remove some of that stigma that is pervasive, I find, in Barbados.
So what exactly, you're a counseling psychologist, so what exactly is a counseling psychologist? And then my follow-up question would be, what is the difference between a counseling psychologist and then all of the other mental health practitioners that we may find in Barbados?
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you asked that question because sometimes a lot of people get like confused, like, okay, well, who do I go to? There's so many different options. I hear many different terms. A psychologist, and in Barbados specifically, I'll start with the broad psychologist term. A psychologist would have been trained here in Barbados at least to master's level in some form of psychology, and they are also registered. They're part of a professional body here in Barbados. In Barbados, we have the Barbados Society of Psychology, and they are registered to practice in Barbados. Of course, they can also be a part of some other professional body throughout the region or throughout the world, but to be practicing, you have to be registered here. A counseling psychologist is a psychologist that deals specifically with helping. So a person would come in as a client. You may have some sort of issue, whether it is an emotional issue, some sort of life trauma, something that you're trying to work through. And the counseling psychologist would use some sort of therapeutic technique first they're going to assess the person, and then they're going to try to assist the person to again begin their daily functioning in a most optimal way. They differ from other psychologists that we may have. For example, clinical psychologists, they may focus specifically on the assessment part of dealing with with the client. So like, what is happening here, and they use different tools and tests to determine that. We also have educational psychologists who, as the term suggests, they would focus mostly on how a student is learning and processing and behaving within that sort of educational setting. All psychologists, so the goal for all of them is to assist the persons with their functioning in one way or another. We also have psychiatrists on the island. Now, psychiatrists are medical doctors. They've gone through that medical training and they are allowed to prescribe medication. Psychologists are not trained to prescribe medication. So that is one significant difference between the two. Psychiatrists can also provide talk therapy like how psychologists do, but psychologists cannot provide medication like how psychiatrists do. And of course, we also have broad therapists. So a therapist may have been trained in some other sector, for example, art. Yeah, but the goal is still the same, to assist persons to function properly within society.
All of these practitioners have the ultimate goal of helping persons attain optimal mental health in one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
How do we define mental health? What is mental health?
Mm-hmm. Mental health is a broad definition, but it's referring to three main facets. So we're looking at a person's emotional health, we're looking at a person's psychological health, and we're looking at a person's social health. So if I'm saying that I have good mental health, I'm saying that across the board, across these three facets, I am functioning properly. So if I'm looking at, for example, emotional health, I know that yesterday I might have had a really nonsense day, and today might be a little bit better. That is life, right? But hopefully across the board, we would want to say that a client, when they reflect on their life, they say, you know what? Yeah, usually I feel pretty okay. My baseline is okay. I am able to manage my emotions properly. So when I get upset, I don't go into a rage. I'm able to calm myself and still function without any sort of outliers of behavior or emotion. If we're looking at psychological health, we're looking at how a person processes their thoughts. So are their thoughts clear? Is there clarity of thought? Is there cohesion of thought? Is there autonomy? Are you able to think for yourself? Are you relying on somebody to make decisions for you? Do you feel a sense of purpose? Do you have goals? Are you able to make goals and kind of follow through with them? Even though we slip up, of course, every now and then, but at least we can make them and try to follow through.
Mm-hmm.
And for social health, we're looking at your belonging, your sense of belonging in the community. So do you have a circle? Do you have a group of people that you can kind of fall back on when you need it? Are you also there for somebody? Do you enjoy people, or do you find people completely repulsive and you have absolutely no one in times of need when you may need people? Because as humans, we are built to have people around, to rely on somebody at some point. So do you have that? And are you able to get along with other people? Or do you find that wherever you go, chaos may follow because, you're not really able to relate to other people? You may need assistance with that.
Okay.
So altogether, those three things, we would say, okay, that makes up mental health. Mm-hmm.
We know that with endometriosis and polycystic ovarian syndrome, there's always the concept of, mental health. What do we say to persons with these types of disorders and, them thinking through how they're going to process this condition as well as their social health with, sharing that information with their loved ones, their family, their friends? What is the best approach to that?
I would say for conditions like endo and like PCOS, the first thing I'm going to suggest that you do is to get a firm diagnosis. Advocate for your own health from your provider, your care provider, because you don't want to be guessing. You don't want to be like, oh, do I have this? But I'm not sure. Make sure you go to someone that you're comfortable with and who will be able to talk you through and guide you through the whole process. I know these conditions come with a myriad of concerns: pain, chronic pain, perhaps heavy menstrual bleeding, excessive menstrual bleeding, perhaps infertility. And a lot of these issues can have significant ramifications for females' health specifically, your mental health. If I'm constantly in pain, and I'm literally feeling like I'm unable to go to work today, for example, how do I tell my boss, oh, I have my period, for example, it's very painful. I can't come in. First of all, there's a stigma around periods and so, which again, mind blowing.
Yeah.
Once you have a uterus, most likely, most of the time, that's what's happening. But yeah, so I might feel embarrassed to say even that, and then the boss would be like, "But a period? Do you mean you can't come work for a period?" Or, and then there's that. Okay, well, am I now undervalued? Am I seen as a lazy person? Am I seen as not a dedicated worker? That's a challenge when actually your pain is legitimate. Um, Considerations like infertility that can play a major role in a woman's health and her family if that's what they wanted, if the children are what they wanted. So I would definitely say if you feel like you are struggling with the whole process with that diagnosis, reach out to somebody, find a group. I know that BAEP has a wonderful support system built in, which I'm sure a lot of people find useful, those who are inside the group. So yes, find a group of persons who can relate to you. Share with your family and friends. Try not to withdraw from them. And again, if you feel like if you need more, can reach out to a mental health provider that can provide more for you.
Right. And so we looked at the specifics with persons like myself with endometriosis.
Mm-hmm.
But looking at it broader, what do you think are if there are any significant differences between mental health and seeking assistance between men and women?
Mm-hmm. Men are socialized, especially within our community. I find that men have been generally socialized to mask. They're seen as if, okay, well, if I express myself, I'm soft, I'm weak. And from young, we see parents might say, oh, you're a boy, get up, don't cry. Boys don't cry when they fall down. Of course boys cry. Boys are human, so they will cry. We feel emotions. They're also socialized to believe that, they're the provider. So I gotta be the man, everything I gotta deal with by myself, right? And if I'm a bottle and I keep pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring into this bottle without any sort of outlet, eventually this bottle can overflow. Yeah, so men also, I would like men to remember that their emotions are valid because they are human and they're expected to have emotions, right? That's valid. And if you have some sort of mental health concern, please don't keep it inside. Have a support system as well. There is absolutely nothing wrong with sharing. There's absolutely nothing wrong with seeking care if you feel like you need it.
Thank you for that. And then with all of that being said, is there a multi-sectoral approach that you are aware of currently, or rather, do you believe there is a need for one, including mental health for persons when they're in the process of seeking a diagnosis for any physical condition? It doesn't have to be a menstrual health condition, any health condition that could possibly significantly impact, their way of life.
Mhm. I know that in Barbados specifically, it does happen. I have seen it. It happens in certain organizations, and I'm glad to see it when it is necessary. Consultation between various health professionals. Yes, it's on a case by case basis. We have to, evaluate the case to see what it warrants. But for sure, if it's something where a diagnosis is completely, perhaps devastating or confusing, and the person needs, some sort of multifaceted care, then of course it should be provided for them.
Stigma can act, that the same stigma you refer to can act as a barrier for persons trying to access this care. But
Mhm.
what is stigma? How do we define it? And then why is it such a barrier? And I'm speaking for myself and my observations solely.
Mhm.
In communities of color, especially, it seems like such a huge barrier.
Mhm. Well, when I look at mental health and stigma, I immediately think about, the views that persons have of people who may be struggling with some sort of mental health condition, the treatment, the discrimination, the stereotypes surrounding these views, which I find is prominent, unfortunately, in Barbados and amongst, because we're predominantly persons of color here in Barbados. I'm heartened by the persons recently who have been sharing. So I'm finding that the stigma is slowly being removed. People are pushing hard for it. I'm so glad to see it. Prominent individuals are sharing their experiences and receiving positive feedback, which I think is really a symbol of strength. And I'm glad that there are people who are rallying behind and saying, you know what, yeah, this happens to me too. Yeah. And we're normalizing the situation. Because if mental health is stigmatized, I'm not gonna if I feel like I'm struggling with some sort of mental health condition and I know that if I go, my mom might say, oh, but just relax, you're gonna feel better soon. Or somebody might say, oh, all you gotta do is drink aloes or something, some sort of something to say, well, yeah, it's nothing. I'm trivializing it. I'm not gonna be as comfortable reaching out. I'm gonna feel like, okay, well, yeah, maybe I am weak. Maybe I can deal with it myself. You're not gonna have a broken leg and be like, you know what? Yeah, I'm weak if I go to the doctor. Come on, toughen up, toughen up. Let me just hop around the house until I feel better. We don't do that. We acknowledge that there's some sort of concern, and we go and seek help for it. So the same way, if there is something that is completely crippling our functioning long term, it would be a good idea to seek help for that.
I believe there's strength in vulnerability, and I think it takes a really strong person to admit when there's something wrong and to seek help. So I appreciate that you were able to outline what stigma is and outline to the audience why it's necessary, and using the physical analogy of the broken foot because I
Right.
think it resonate with a lot of people. If you have a broken foot, you're not just going to sit there and stare at it and be like, oh shoot, my foot my foot's broken, right? And the same thing, if you're getting these bouts of sadness, heightened levels of anxiety, and you think that they're impacting your everyday life, there's
Mm.
nothing wrong in seeking assistance from an expert. So thank you.
Mhm. No problem.
And I'm going to segue straight into speaking to what we are currently dealing with as a community in Barbados, and as the world as a whole, COVID-19.
Mm.
We couldn't have a conversation about mental health. We couldn't be talking about the fact that this is Mental Health Awareness Week and not speak about coronavirus and the secondary prevalence. Do you have any general recommendations for persons dealing with mental health associated issues due to COVID and that everything that has come with it?
Okay. The first thing I would say about COVID is that there's nothing normal about it. It as humans, we operate with some level of predictability. So I might say, okay, well, I know December might be the holiday season, and then I know we go into January, and January is the time when a lot of people feel like, okay, payday takes long. So I am able to say, okay, I know what generally happens. I don't
Right.
know what happens on a day-to-day basis, but generally, I kind of know what to expect. That's it, right? COVID blew most people's minds. Yeah, so it's unexpected, it is not normal, and therefore, for many people, it really cannot be business as usual. I know that for a lot of people, it's frustrating not having business as usual. I'm used to this particular routine. This is what I do, and if I am doing this, I'm failing. Not necessarily the case at all. You are making it through every day, so therefore you are passing, because this is, as I say, is an abnormal situation. This is a pandemic. This is a time of heightened anxiety for many people, and especially those who are already grappling with mental health conditions. It can be a little bit harder. So some suggestions, just some general suggestions. If you find that social media and news and all of the things that are going on, if you find that that's really weighing you down, remove yourself from it. Yeah. For me personally, when I found like, okay, this is a lot, like, what am I hearing? I was like, okay, well, it's time to turn my phone off. It's just time to turn the TV off. I'm not remaining ignorant. I have the basic, I have the understanding of what's going on. I know what I need to do. Let me just turn off my TV and do that until I feel a little bit better personally. And. So yes, if you need to remove yourself from media for a little bit, do that. If you need to remove yourself from WhatsApp groups and speculation and stuff until you have a better handle, okay, right? Do what you need to do to feel better. I know some persons have various relaxation techniques. Some people use journaling. They just write out their thoughts, get it out somehow. Exercise, we can still exercise at home. We can go out to the beach in our specified times, you know. So we do have outlets that we can use. In terms of distancing, we don't want to use the term social distancing anymore. We want to use the term physical distancing. Yeah, because yes, we are to remain, you know, distant from each other physically, but hopefully we are to maintain the connections that are important to us. So yes, reach out if you're able to reach out on the phone. Have use apps to communicate with each other. Use apps like I know there's Zoom and Google Meet, and there's an app called House Party that we can use. So just, you know, hang out with your friends on the app. Dress up if you need to, you know, make it an event, you know. Find some ways to find some joy within the situation. And again, if you are feeling like, no, this is too much, it's too much, and I really need assistance, there is assistance out there for you if you're really struggling.
Keep mentioning the fact that they're resources. What are these resources? Ones which you can mention that would be available to persons in Barbados.
hmm Well, first of all, I would always suggest, you know, if you can go to your primary care provider, yeah, your doctor, they can always make referrals for you based on what you tell them is happening. You can go to polyclinics, you know. The QEH also has the facilities available, the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. And of course, if you're looking for a psychologist, specifically, the Barbados Society of Psychology, you can find them on Facebook under that name. There is a directory of psychologists that you can peruse, you know, and see what would be the best match for you. Yeah, there's the psychiatric hospital. We do have a lot of outlets. It just depends on what you are going through. But if you're completely lost and you don't know where to start, a polyclinic or your physician can point you in the right direction.
Right. And I also saw that the Ministry of Health had a resource list available. It was actually reposted on the BAEP's Facebook page.
hmm
I can repost it on our IG page
hmm
for those of you who might not necessarily be on Facebook and haven't seen it. But yes,
hmm
there are a lot of resources out there because there is a recognition that it's not just a physical. It's not just impacting us physically. There's
Right.
all facets of our health are impacted, and I think
hmm
it's important for us to recognize that outside of COVID, all facets of our health are also always affected by one thing or another, and
Yep,
they shouldn't be this segmentation between them. They influence each other, and
they do.
I hoping that out of this there is that there will be that recognition, and that growth of recognizing that these things intersect, and it's important to, whilst you're maintaining your physical health, you also need to maintain your mental health.
hmm
Do you have any last words for our audience?
Um, I would just say, you know, I hope you are doing well. You know, continue to try your best to be well. You know, there is some picture going around on social media saying, you know, we're all going through the same storm, but not necessarily in the same boat. So one person's experience is not another person's experience. It's the same, you know, general pandemic struggle right now, but totally different experiences. Your experience is valid. Whatever you're feeling, perfectly valid. Um, just keep going, keep pushing through.
So thank you so much for sharing your time and your knowledge with us, Vanya. I really appreciate it. And I'm hoping that after this, our viewers, out of many things, would be able to understand mental health a little bit more, know the different types of mental health practitioners that are available to them in Barbados, understand the implications of mental health and stigma, and then recognize that there's that intersection between all facets of health and wellness. To our viewers, for more about Vania, we will provide contact information in the description below and in our end card. So thank you to all who have joined us, and we look forward to seeing you next week on the next BAEP Talks with. Have a lovely evening. Bye.
Bye, everyone.